Okay, today's book is Brave New World. Very impressed with this book. Had some very interesting ideas. Hopefully I cover the majority of them. Maybe we have to go back and revisit the book, but the overall concept of the book, trying not to spoil it as well because it's a work of fiction. And I don't know if people want spoilers. I don't know if people want me to just ruin everything. So let me know. We could do a spoiler version of this, but we're gonna keep it spoiler free for the most part. If I spoil you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm new to reviewing fiction. I'm new to reviewing stories. But anyway, the concept of the book is that there is this state, and everything is engineered. Everything is so precise. There is no normal reproduction. It's all done in test tubes. It's all done, and everyone's basically twins. And it's a caste system. People are given certain traits based off of certain castes, and the lower castes don't have as many abilities. They're given less tasks, and it's really engineered from the top to the bottom. And some of the more interesting concept of the book is that there's no relationships. Everyone belongs to each other. There's no such thing as marriage. There's no parents. There's no family. And it's very different from 1984 in that manner. Like 1984, everything was seemingly done by force. Everything was seemingly done by fear. Whereas in Brave New World, there's no need for that because no one rebels. No one does anything because they've been programmed since the day they were born. This was a very interesting scene in the book where there's a bunch of kids sleeping and they're playing like almost like white noise, but it's like socially programming them. It's telling them ideas to basically understand, and it's going to penetrate their subconscious, and it's going to in some way affect how they view the world. That's another thing. If you're falling asleep and you want to read a book the next day, if you listen to the audiobook while you're falling asleep, you'll retain it. It's so weird. I don't know why it works, and nobody's ever been able to explain it. The subconscious is insane. If you want to know about the subconscious, go into Jung. But anyway, back to this book, and it's very, very interesting. And I was very excited that they threw in a new character because the initial characters I wasn't very fond of. They just kind of seemed boring. They were kind of just like edgy, and they weren't really like hitting at the core of the human condition, which is like, if you know me, that's disappointing to me. But basically the story unravels when one, I think he's like lower to mid caste, goes with a higher caste woman to a reserve, which is basically like people that rejected society, people that rejected to conform to the norms and all of this social engineering and social programming. And they bring back two individuals with them. One was a woman that had a kid, and she was basically outcast because of that. And another is a boy who is the son of that woman. And the woman goes right back into the drug-addled ideas, because in this society they're given drugs, they're given like almost like SSRIs to make them happy, make them fall asleep, make them kind of forget like who they are, forget any qualms about their current situation, and really just remove any of the human element from the world, because everyone in this world is kind of a robot. Everyone in this world kind of just exists to exist. They exist for a purpose. There's nothing beyond, I must do this task, I must do that. And it's really interesting to see the social controls. I really, really suggest you reading this book because it has some haunting parallels to today, but we will get to that at the end. But back to the narrative. They call him the Savage, but his name is John. I'll switch back and forth between that. But John is a guy that learned how to read, who knows the classics. He knows Othello. He knows Shakespeare. He knows other poets and stuff like that. And he's really just trying to conceptualize what society is, conceptualize this way of life, and he really doesn't agree with it. And he particularly doesn't agree with the concept of love, the concept of affection, the concept of marriage, and how that is just non-existent in this society. And it gives us really interesting parallels. And now we can get into the similarities with what we see today. I think if you look at society en masse today, like there's been various movements that have tried to basically enact what this book is describing. This book was written in 1934. If you know anything about history, you know that in the 1930s, really in the early 1900s, there was a big push for the eugenics movement. People were trying to engineer a smarter society, engineer a better society. That's not a good thing. I don't know if I have to go into the morality of that, but like, it's very interesting to see Aldous Huxley, I think that's how you say it. It's very interesting for him to kind of predict what we're seeing now, because I mean, even in this current climate, even in this current culture, like there's so much talk about diversity, but there's no actual diversity. It's everyone thinking the same and then just looking different. And it's like, is that really what we want? Because the idea of diversity is that better ideas combine to create new ideas. That's the entire purpose behind it. That's the entire incentive behind it. But like, if everyone's thinking the same, is it just diversity for the sake of appearances or diversity for the sake of actual progress? And I think these are deeper discussions that we need to have. I think these are deeper discussions that we should start to understand. And it even almost parallels Nietzsche's approach to free will. Nietzsche basically believed that there was no such thing as free will, because in every individual's life, they are in some way touched by someone else. There is some way, I don't know why I said touched. They're in some way affected by someone else. They're shaded in some way, and because of this, they are never truly acting out of their own volition. They are never truly acting in a manner that is actually their own ideas, their own thoughts, because they've been influenced since the time that they were born. So they really don't have a choice. They really don't have free will. And it's interesting to see that like the discussions we're having, especially in the political climate, are not educated ones. They're not talking about the rights that are under the Constitution that aren't being given, that aren't being expressed, that are actively being stepped upon. And I think it's a very interesting book to understand, because when you read books like this, you kind of see behind the lines, you kind of see behind the power structures and the control mechanisms. And I'm not even somebody that believes that they're orchestrated. I just believe that society naturally takes away the individual, and it's good to a certain extent because it means that we're not acting violently, we're not rioting en masse, we're not doing these things like, you know, like there was a day and age where you had to worry about your safety. For the most part, you don't have to worry about your safety in this current society, but like it's had such drastic effects on the individual. It's had such drastic effects on the mental health of people, because they've had to sacrifice every part of themselves to conform. And I think we need to understand this, because not saying there needs to be great changes, but I just think like recognizing where the social engineering goes wrong, recognizing where some of these things aren't worth the risk. Like whatever reward we think we're going to get, I think it's always better to allow individuals to make their own decisions, allow individuals to think for themselves and do what they think is right, even if it's not. You know what I mean? Like allow someone to be dumb if they're going to be dumb. Allow someone the chance to like blow all their savings on the Hawk Tubo coin if they're going to do it. You know what I mean? It's like we want things like this because it's the exact ability to take a risk that makes our society so great. That's made, you know, the movements throughout history, like the Renaissance, the ideas of, you know, Carl Jung, the ideas of Nietzsche. Like these ideas weren't popular at the time, but you read them now and you're like, these people understood something that wouldn't be proved for the next few hundred years. And you're just like, you know what, why don't we allow people to step outside? Why don't we allow people to be a little weird? Why don't we allow people to not conform? Because this is where the greatest ideas came from. Like, truly, if we all conform to the same standards, I don't think there would have been a Nikola Tesla. I wouldn't be filming right now because there would be no electricity, there'd be no Thomas Edison, there'd be no Einstein. We would still conceptualize gravity in the way that Isaac Newton did if there was not Einstein. And I think there's this element of human nature that we need to respect. Because I don't think it's respected nowadays. I don't think the fantastical element, the uncontrollable element, the idea that the more you try to control someone, the more you try to make them subservient, the more they're going to resist. And I think we need to understand this in the context of what is going on in society as a whole. And yeah, I really like this book. It really brought up a lot of interesting ideas. Maybe the story wasn't, I don't know, I didn't, like the narrative elements of it were good. There was a few things I didn't particularly like. I think they could have been done better, but again, work overall is a classic. It's a great book, and I'll leave a link to this book in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching this. Thank you guys so much for making it this far. I think this is a book that, if you like 1984, you should read this one as well, because I think it's more predictive of what's happening in society. I don't think it's a consolidated movement. I think it's just a natural human need for comfort, and that comfort eventually will take away the freedoms that we have today. And I think this is a much bigger concern than any sort of organization at the top. I think the the human's mind need for comfort and need for stability is ultimately going to be the downfall. And again, like, what can we do from this? The only answer I can give is that you got to focus on yourself. You got to do the due diligence. You got to educate yourself, and you got to become your own person. Be able to make your own decisions. Be able to think freely, and it's a lot harder than it seems. So yeah, hopefully you guys like this review. I don't know. This is gonna be interesting. We'll see what the comments are gonna say. But yeah, overall, I like this book. That's all I got for you guys today. If you want to get updates on when I'm live streaming, join my Discord. If you want to be part of my school community, I have something really exciting that's coming out in the next few days. Join right now because it's free. It's not going to be free for long. The first 50 people I'm going to let in for free. After that, it's going to be paid. So if you don't want to pay me a cent, go ahead, join right now. Courses in there, more stuff to come, possibly live streams, possibly other stuff. Not going to give it away. Love you guys so much. Peace out.